January 25th, 1976. The air over São Paulo hung thick with humidity, the sun blistering the cracked asphalt of the Interlagos circuit. This was a track forged in an era before safety became a mantra, a winding 4.9-mile gauntlet of blind crests, off-camber corners, and bone-rattling bumps. A track where drivers didn't just race cars, they wrestled them. Niki Lauda arrived as Formula One's newest world champion, a man who had rewritten the rules of dominance in 1975. His Ferrari 312T was no mere machine, it was a revolution. Designed by Mauro Forghieri, its flat 12 engine sat low and wide, its chassis balanced to near perfection. The car had crushed rivals with relentless reliability, but Interlagos posed a different challenge. Here, engineering met anarchy. Practice sessions revealed the cracks in Ferrari's armor. Telemetry data flickered with anomalies. Erratic rear-wheel load spikes, suspension arms flexing under braking. The bumps shook the car violently, destabilizing its carefully calibrated aerodynamics. To Lauda, though, it was just noise. If the car is fast, you drive around the problems, he'd say. And fast it was. Qualifying told the story. Ronnie Peterson, the super Swede in John Player Special's Black and Gold Lotus, danced through the chaos to claim pole. His car, lighter and looser, thrived in the disorder. Lauda, ever the pragmatist, secured second, just 0.2 seconds adrift. The Austrian's lap was a study in control. No wasted movement, no heroics. But as engineers pored over data that night, one question lingered. Why did the Ferrari's rear end buck like a wild horse under braking? Race day dawned hotter still. Peterson bolted off the line, his Lotus sliding sideways through the first corner, tires smoking. Lauda held back, biding his time. For 32 laps, he stalked the Lotus, exploiting the Ferrari's superior traction out of Interlagos' endless sequence of second-gear bends. Then, fate intervened. Peterson's gearbox, overstressed by the track's brutality, failed in a shower of oil and metal. Lauda seized the lead. What followed was a clinic in efficiency. While others fought their cars, he carved precise lines, nursing tires through the heat. The Ferrari's flaw, those violent rear-end kicks, should have been a liability, but Interlagos' bumps masked it. Every driver grappled with instability here. Lauda's struggle blended into the background. When the checkered flag fell, the gap to second place stretched to 40 seconds. The press hailed it as a masterclass. Ferrari's engineers, though, exchanged uneasy glances. Buried in the data was a truth they couldn't ignore. The 312T's rear suspension, optimized for smooth European circuits, was fundamentally ill-suited to handle lateral loads under braking. At Interlagos, the bumps had disguised the weakness. But on a smooth track, the consequences would be catastrophic. As Lauda stood on the podium, drenched in champagne, the seeds of a paradox had already been planted. Ferrari's greatest strength, technical precision, had become its Achilles heel. And in 6 weeks' time, the streets of Monaco would force that truth into the light. 6 weeks after Brazil, the Formula One circus descended on Monaco, a world away from Interlagos' raw chaos. Here the streets gleamed like polished glass, hemmed in by unforgiving barriers. The Mediterranean sun glittered off the harbor, but for Niki Lauda, the glamour masked danger. Monaco's precision would test Ferrari's 312T in ways Interlagos never could. Practice began under clear skies. From his first lap, Lauda felt it, a twitch in the rear, subtle but persistent. The Ferrari, so stable in Brazil, now danced on a knife's edge. Through the Casino Square kink, the car wobbled mid-corner. Under braking for Saint Devote, the rear tires skated sideways. Telemetry confirmed it. The suspension, so masterful on bumpy tracks, couldn't cope with Monaco's relentless smoothness. "The car is nervous," Lauda radioed, his voice clipped. Engineers scrambled. Springs were stiffened, dampers adjusted, but the problem ran deeper. The 312T's rear suspension geometry, optimized to absorb bumps, now amplified every input. On Interlagos' broken surface, bumps had disguised the flaw by constantly unsettling the chassis. Here, the car's instability fed on itself, growing worse with every lap. Qualifying was a humiliation. Lauda, the reigning champion, languished in fifth, over a second behind Ronnie Peterson's Lotus. The Austrian's face tightened as he ripped off his helmet. "It's undrivable," he snapped. Reporters buzzed. Was Ferrari's dominance over? Race day brought no respite. As the lights went green, Lauda lunged into Saint Devote, threading between James Hunt's Hesketh and Clay Regazzoni's shadowing Ferrari. But exiting the corner, the rear snapped. No warning, no slide, just a violent jerk. Left, then right. The car speared into the barriers, nose first. The impact shattered the front wing. Lauda sat motionless for a moment, hands gripping the wheel. Then, with mechanical precision, he unbuckled, climbed out, and stalked away. No rage, no theatrics, just cold analysis. The rear suspension collapsed, he told engineers. Fix it. Back at Maranello, Ferrari's technicians dissected the wreckage. The truth was inescapable. The 312T's rear suspension load spiked unpredictably under braking on smooth surfaces, overloading the tires. At Interlagos, bumps had disrupted those forces, masking the flaw. Monaco's clinical demands exposed it. Lauda demanded answers. If we don't solve this, we lose the championship, he warned. Engineers redesigned the suspension pickup points, sacrificing some of the car's legendary balance for stability. But time was short. The next race, the Nürburgring, 14.2 miles of jumps, crests, and blind corners, a track that rewarded bravery as much as engineering. As the team packed for Germany, Lauda stared at the revised schematics. The paradox was clear. To survive the Nürburgring's chaos, Ferrari had to abandon the perfection that once made them invincible. But in Formula One, adaptation is the price of survival. August 1st, 1976. The Nürburgring's Nordschleife loomed under a brooding sky, 14.2 miles of asphalt snaking through the Eiffel forests. For centuries, this track had devoured legends. Now it awaited Niki Lauda. The Ferrari, rebuilt after Monaco's humiliation, bore revised suspension arms and a stiffer rear end. But the changes came at a cost. The 312T's razor-sharp balance, once its greatest weapon, had been blunted to tame its flaws. Lauda knew the stakes. James Hunt, his charismatic rival, had clawed back points in the championship. The Nürburgring demanded absolute trust between man and machine, but trust was in short supply. Practice was a war of attrition. Rain lashed the circuit on Friday, turning the track into a river. Lauda, ever the pragmatist, refused to drive. Too dangerous, he declared. Race organizers scoffed. Fellow drivers called it cowardice. But Lauda's calculus was colder. Why risk a car or a life for a practice session? Sunday dawned damp and foggy. The grid formed under protest. Drivers had voted to boycott the race, citing safety. Only Lauda's refusal to back down forced the start. When the lights went green, chaos erupted. Hunt's McLaren surged ahead, while Lauda, cautious in the spray, hovered in fourth. Then, on lap 2, it happened. Exiting Bergwerk, a fast left-hander, the Ferrari's rear suspension snapped. The car veered right, speared into an earth bank, and burst into flames. Lauda, trapped inside, inhaled searing toxic fumes before marshals dragged him free. The burns would scar his face. The psychological wounds ran deeper. Back at Maranello, Ferrari faced a reckoning. The suspension redesign, born from Monaco's failure, had not held. Engineers pored over the wreckage. The flaw? A compromise forced by haste. The revised components, tested in a rush, lacked the durability of the original design. Perfection, it seemed, could not be engineered twice. Lauda's recovery defied logic. 6 weeks later, bandages still clinging to his ravaged skin, he returned at Monza. The Tifosi roared as he qualified fifth. In the race, he finished fourth, a result that spoke not of speed, but sheer will. The championship duel with Hunt would climax at Fuji, under a typhoon's wrath. Lauda, leading by 3 points, retired after 2 laps. Too dangerous, he said again, his burned eyelids sealing shut in the rain. Hunt finished third, clinching the title by a single point. But 1976's true legacy wasn't the championship. It was the lesson etched in fire and metal. In Formula One, survival demands sacrifice. Ferrari's pursuit of perfection had blinded them to their car's fragility. Lauda's pragmatism, his willingness to abandon a race, a title, even his own body, redefined what it meant to be a champion. The 312T evolved. By 1977, its suspension was bulletproof, its reliability unmatched. Lauda won his second title, but the paradox lingered. The car that nearly killed him owed its success to the failures of 1976. Interlagos' bumps, Monaco's barriers, the Nürburgring's flames, each had exposed a truth. In Formula One, there are no perfect machines, only imperfect men, racing to outrun the shadows of their past. See you tomorrow for another Today in F1.